What does it truly mean to serve? Is leadership about power or about responsibility? Welcome to Your Stewardship, a compelling new radio program that shines the spotlight on individuals in positions of service and the impact they've made or are still making on the people they serve. From public officials to community leaders, from the health sector to education and beyond, we ask the tough questions. Have they been accountable? Have they delivered? Have they truly served? This is more than just a conversation. It is a moment of reflection, transparency, and truth. Join us as we explore real stories, real challenges, and real outcomes, because stewardship is not just a title, it's a duty. Your Stewardship: service, accountability, and impact.
Hello and welcome to Your Stewardship on Orange 94.5 FM, the program where leadership meets the ledger of public accountability. My name is Remy Allen, your host. True leadership isn't just about the shield. It is about the burden of responsibility carried and the legacy left behind. In a nation still searching for leadership that is both prepared and purposeful, our guest today stands out as a compelling blend of intellect, experience, and conviction. Abisayo Modupe-Busari Akinnadeju is a distinguished legal practitioner, governance expert, and fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators UK, with over 15 years of professional and community engagements across Nigeria. Armed with academic credentials from Obafemi Awolowo University, King's College London, and the University of Cambridge, our journey reflects a deliberate preparation for leadership at the highest level. Madam, it's nice having you join us on Your Stewardship.
Thank you so much for having me. I really look forward to today's discussion. I believe we have a lot to share together.
I quite agree with you. We have a lot to share together. So let me start from the very background. That's your identity. You've championed the I Am a Nigerian conference. That's beyond the legal definition. Who is Abisayo at the core when the microphones are off and, of course, the cameras are down?
Amazing. I love that question. So I like the fact that you actually started from a campaign I run, which is the Nigerian campaign. And I actually just define myself that way. So anytime anybody asks me, who is Abisayo? I said, Abisayo is a Nigerian. And I grew up in the same country, born and bred a Nigerian under the military regime, actually, which actually situates my interest in governance, especially the future of Nigeria. So I grew up as that child who knows that I have responsibility to ensure that my nation is better positioned, my nation is well led by leaders who care about the citizens, and how to grow a country as big as Nigeria that has all the resources and all that. That's mindset of shaping who have become over the years. So I'm the last in the family of 8 initially, and I decided to study law. So I'll probably just mention that initially, even as a child, even though my teachers right in secondary school in Ondo State Ashaye made me to do a lot of physics and chemistry, I wanted to study law, and I eventually studied law because I believe justice is something that must be done. The right of the individuals in Nigeria, especially those who do not have the means to defend themselves, need to be championed by someone. So with the things I saw while growing up as a child, it has shaped who have become over the years. It has translated to my identity, the woman who is campaigning for Nigerians to be proud of who they are, where they are from, to the woman who goes to the different courtrooms aside her day-to-day job to ensure that the indigent Nigerians who might not be able to afford the services of a legal practitioner have access to justice. So I've lived all my life thinking of how I can make Nigeria a better place. I think that summarizes me. I'm a Nigerian.
And a true daughter of the soil on the state.
Absolutely.
I'm also surprised to hear that you actually attended Fiwashaye.
Yes, I got into Fuashaye in 1993. I actually had all my secondary school days in that school. It's actually another school which I cannot deny the role he played in my life in forming the leader that I've become over the years. Apart from being in leadership role throughout from GSS 1 to GSS 3, the school in itself builds in you that sisterhood. So I remember getting into Fuashai and I was told that the next person is your sister, that we're not going to use senior this or senior that because we're all of the same family. Those are ideals that form the person I've come to become, and the reason why I look at every Nigerian as a family member.
While you were talking, you said a woman who has been to the courtroom and all that. You've transitioned from law to deep-rooted civic activism. Was there a specific breaking point in our national life that forced you to move from the courtroom that you're so used to the community?
Well, I would say that I'm still a lawyer. I'm still a practicing lawyer. What I did
Okay.
was move to the energy sector, that's the oil and gas sector. And I must take you a little bit back to say, okay, so yeah, I studied law for that purpose, and I still practice law.
Okay. So you still visit the courtroom? Courtroom.
No.
Oh,
So right now I sit
okay.
at the corporate sector as a legal advisor to oil and gas firms in Nigeria.
Okay.
And that is actually also very important in the nation, in the course of things for this country. We know that is where the majority of inflow to Nigerian economy comes from at the moment. So I advise in that sector. Regardless of that, I run an NGO that still till today provide legal services to those who are indigent. So that part of my life has not died and will not die. Even though I don't
Uh,
personally go to the courtroom, I have an NGO that is basically focused on attending to cases of law, of people who probably would need the services of a lawyer.
pro bono.
Yeah, pro bono cases.
All right. You enrolled in the Cambridge Executive MBA in 2024, specifically to prepare for governance. Why do you believe academic preparation in macroeconomics is prerequisite for Nigerian leadership today? And how does it change your approach compared to the career politician?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I would say that you know, I started, like I said, my first degree was in law, and I've worked around the justice sector of Nigeria, the governance structure of Nigeria, how we need to reposition Nigeria for better relevance, how it affects the day-to-day life of Nigerian citizens. But the truth is, in advocating all of these changes and pushing for policy reforms and frameworks that can improve a country, the basic line for any country to succeed at all is if the country can get its economics right, both even at macro level and micro level. And to further advance my understanding of how Nigeria can better be positioned beyond just studying other countries, I decided to take the Cambridge MBA because it offers the opportunity for you to study other economics in other countries. So I've seen a lot of people do MBA courses, but Cambridge has a unique way to their MBA studies, which takes you across different countries to study the businesses in those countries. And that was more relevant to me because I'm looking at a Nigerian that was in the old parlance called a third world country. Now, in the new parlance, you'll call it a developing economy. And for me to better understand and rule Nigeria, if the opportunity ever comes on lead the country, I definitely need to also go around in order to other countries intentionally studying their own businesses, how they advance their countries. So studying with Cambridge took me to countries like the Asia countries like Japan, brought me to Mexico, took me down to even other African countries as well to see how these things are done, their mistakes as well as their positives. And then you can come back home to Nigeria and situate it. In addition to that, I believe that Nigerian president is not necessarily, it's not a solo game. What makes you a great president in Nigeria will not be because you are the best economist, but because you know what it takes and what you should do. So when you're putting the round peg you're putting it in the round hole. When you're putting the square peg, you're putting the square peg in the square hole. And you need to know what you're doing to actually be able to transform Nigeria. And I will not talk too much about the past experiences we've had in Nigeria on this. You've seen leaders, you've seen decisions that we take at the end of affairs, the CBN policies that have actually brought us to where we are. All this shows gap in knowledge, gap in how to grow the economy of this country, especially with our unique what I'll say, the unique difference that we have in Nigeria. Nigeria is not just any other country. It's a country of over 220 million people. That knowledge cannot be lost on whoever is going to lead Nigeria. Nigeria is bigger than United Kingdom, the whole of United Kingdom together, the whole of Canada together. That is, if you join Canada, join United Kingdom, and put 4 other African countries together, they are still not as large as Nigeria. So if you're going to rule a country this large, you need to come well prepared. You need to come well situated, not just in politics, because we've had a lot of politicians at the helm of their affairs. It's not about politics. It goes beyond politics. It's an economy. It's a business. It's lives you're talking about. And to be able to directly, you need to equip yourself on every area. So because I've been in the civic space for a number of years, I've gone from all the angles. Okay, what exactly is this problem? The security issues in Nigeria, what are the framework for solving it? The economy issue in Nigeria, what are the ways by which we can solve it? And I've not just stayed behind saying, okay, what can we do? I've studied, I've been to the best of places to get all the frameworks. Don't also forget that we run a system in Nigeria handed over to us by the British colony masters. It also means that for you to be able to run a system given to you, to know if you can continue running that system, why the system, or if you need to make changes, you also need to understand more about those who gave you the system in the first place. So I found myself taking a lot of courses abroad, not because I want to just go outside the country to study, but because I needed to go to those who brought it here to also take some things from them. I call it repatriation of knowledge. They came here, they probably took some things away from here, but I went there to take their frameworks and I brought it on so that we can apply it and apply.
All right. I know that you are not the only one who have gone outside the country to study more to be able to want to better our country. And I also know that a lot of our leaders, a lot of our politicians travel abroad, they see what's happening there, and it's difficult for them to make it work in Nigeria. What do you think is Nigeria's problem? Do you think it's going to be easy for you to also translate all that you've learned if you eventually become the president? Is there a particular problem we have in Nigeria? Is there a problem of culture or whatever? What do you think?
So, permit me to say this actually. Most of the times when people travel out for international classes, most times they do it for the purpose of getting the credentials and necessarily for the purpose of learning what it can take for them to come back home to make a change in leadership, especially for those who are in politics. So I could remember during my interview when I was going into Cambridge and they asked, why do you want to come into Cambridge? And from that very first day, I told them I'm studying this because my Nigerians need some solutions that I believe, okay, what has actually been wrong with the Nigerian economy? I wanted to know more about economics. And, the truth is, there's nothing wrong with Nigeria. And I say that with a full chest. Nigeria is absolutely positioned to be better, to get better, to be the leader when it comes to even the African continent and the world leader in the real sense. The potentials are there. The systems have always been an issue, really, because if you have a weak system, no matter how good you are, even as a leader, you will probably struggle. But leadership goes beyond just having the money in your pocket or having the names that have been in power over the time. Leadership means you need to be able to create a direction for your people, have the vision, and lead them in that direction. And one of the things that Nigerian leaders over the years have probably also lost is the trust of the people. Because if you look at the way Nigeria is, over the years, we have political parties with no clear ideology. So you have I can leave APC today and go to PDP. I can leave PDP today and go to Labour Party, just because my interest is not being served. There are no different ideology. If you remember the book of Animal Farm by George
Yes.
Bell, he said at some
Jojo
point
well.
the animals and the human beings look the same. You turn this way, you can't tell the difference. And that's what we have in politics in Nigeria. So when APC is in power, PDP will do everything to frustrate APC from moving forward, so that in the next cycle of election, that party can come into governance. And when PDP is there, the other party will do the same to them. That has kept Nigeria going around in circles and has not allowed us to move forward. Personal interest, individual, as opposed to the national interest. So you see people, that's what I say, most times when people leave Nigeria to get credentials, it's sometimes, oh, so I can add it to my portfolio. And then I can say I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, but that is not the cause. What should drive you are the changes you need to bring to Nigeria. And I will go on a very layman thing. Nigerian leaders travel outside this country, not just Nigerian leaders, African leaders, even for health tourism. They go outside the country, but they never come back home to say, oh, this works in the hospital I visited. Can I replicate
Exactly.
it in Nigeria? We've seen it so many times. And I wonder, go outside often and you come back home and you're comfortable, and then we see at the end of the day Nigerian leaders or African leaders, they die in abroad hospitals. How much will it cost for us to restore and bring back the good medical facilities we used to have in Nigeria in the early 1950s and the 1960s that we all read about? So what we need to do are leaders who are not going for the paparazzi of going abroad, but going there to say, okay, what's working in this country? Can I replicate it in Nigeria? Are there some
Exactly.
differences I need to introduce to it, because Nigerians are different? And so if you don't have leaders who are thinking constantly that way, or who understand the problems, and I dare to say this, it's not that most of them do not want to replicate it, it's because they do not even know that these are issues for Nigerians. So if you sit with the majority of Nigerians who have the rich or the elite in that sense, it is difficult for them to understand that one man went to bed last night unable to sleep because he can't pay school fees. And they don't understand that the young Nigerian man out there is not lazy, but he's thinking about, my child cannot have a headache because I don't have the money for hospital. But when you go to advanced countries, an average man is not worried about school fees. Their schools are free. He's not worried about health bill. The medical facilities are free, at least at that level for the public. Then that man can actually put his mind into other things to make money. Poverty will not leave Nigeria until certain things are taken off the table of the Nigerian man. But a man who has never struggled to pay school fees, who has never struggled to pay medical bill, will not understand the pain of the Nigerian man down there. And so even when he travels out, he doesn't see, there are some big medical facilities in Nigeria that can attend to them. Recently, we saw a purchase of an helicopter, which is good for services. But the truth is, how many Nigerians will be able to get on that helicopter to access medical help when they need it? So the problem of Nigeria right now is not that. And when I say Nigeria, I mean majority of Nigerians. So we're looking at the basics. What happens? And one of the best countries I said I've visited that reminded me so much of home is Japan. Japan is advancing in terms of technology. In fact, they're the third on the world when it comes to technological advancement. While in Japan, you will still see in their markets, they still use town criers like we used to use in the old days to educate their citizens about the harms that comes with technology on the road and in the market. You will see businesses that started 40 years, 100 years ago, still in existence, because the country is emphasizing on businesses not dying. So you need to know, we've loved the white collar so much, and I'm happy I've been there. I tell people, you will not appreciate Nigeria until you leave Nigeria. When you
All
step
right.
out of this country, then you realize that what you have is way better than what anybody else has anywhere outside there. They don't have our weather. They don't have joy, the joy that we have in Nigeria, even in the face of pain. Nigerians are happy. So leadership has to be one that identifies with the people, which is the
With
norm.
the people.
in my campaign when the campaign officially starts. But in what we're saying is we need leaders that identify with the people. We need leaders that carry the people along. We need people that even understand the pain of the average citizen, not performers. They come before election, they will sing the song, they will talk to the people, and then immediately after election, they will go silent. They will go silent until another election time. Then the promises will come back up. Otherwise, the problems would have been fixed. So what we've had in Nigeria over the years are people who want to, it's my turn to lead. It's my time. It's we rotate it. It's my tribe's turn. It's my party's turn. But no, we are not helping the average Nigerians. Things are getting worse. And I tell people, the world is not waiting for Nigeria to get its own rights. Rwanda is trying to make it on its own. Mali is trying to stand up. What are we doing
All
as
right. Okay, all right. Let me ask you this, quite interesting. As a youth corps members in 2009, you led 70 lawyers in providing pro bono aid and renovating juvenile remand homes. How did that early encounter with the Nigerian justice system shape your current political philosophy?
Thank you for that question. Abeokuta Ministry of Justice was one very amazing opportunity, I would call it, when I went to serve. So I happened to find myself in the Ministry of Justice, and 70 lawyers were posted to the Ministry of Justice. There was no space for us. We were a lot. So we were all put in a conference room, and in the conference room, talking about how can we make the justice system better in Abeokuta before leaving. Of course, eventually we had an election, and I emerged the president of the legal aid. Of course, the straight thing for me to do, which has always been the passion I had, which is prison decongestion. I say sometimes that the real criminals are not really behind bars most of the time in Nigeria. The real criminals have enough money to get good lawyers, have enough money to not even sleep behind bar for one day. But the child of that woman that is struggling, does not know his or her rights from right or left, will be in prison awaiting trial for an offense that even if he or she were found guilty, she would have finished serving it. So somebody who probably would have been sentenced to a 3 years imprisonment is in the prison for 5 years and still on awaiting trial. So at the end of the day, when judgment is delivered, what is the hope of that person? The 5 years is lost if you find him or her innocent. No compensation. And then coming back into the society to get acclimatized again becomes a problem. So we took up those cases, we went into the courtrooms, we looked for cases of people who are genuinely being in the prison or held in the prison system without access to the courtroom. And we took up the cases. We got people off even death rows. It was actually a very positive year for us. And then we went into the juvenile homes, because I also believe that, all these things we're talking about from when you're a child. One of the reasons why I'm advocating for the children for so long. I was groomed as a child. My love for Nigeria started for when I was a child. And so I believe that the juveniles also need that touch. So we went into the juveniles home, counseling the children, relating with them, showing them that they can actually change their lives from there. And then we did a little bit of renovation, so that at least to let them know we're not just here to talk. We're here to also make your life while you're here easier and better. It was a good experience for us. And even after I left service here, I just went into Lagos and continued with the same passion.
I wanted to ask, hope you didn't just leave it at that. Hope it's a continuous project.
Not at all. So I continued the project immediately I left service here in Lagos.
All right. Through one of your projects, that's Project One, you've engaged citizens across all 6 geopolitical zones. Beyond clothing and training, how are you measuring the long-term civic shift in these 12,000 plus individuals?
Amazing question. I think the joy I've had so over the years had been the feedback I usually get from, I call them my children or my babies. Some of them are taller than me now. So beyond clothing the babies, we do the leadership club trainings. And I'll give a bit of background to that as well. So for a number of years, you hear people say, oh, the problem of Nigeria is leadership. the problem of Nigeria is leadership. And in my usual solution-oriented self, I said, if your problem is leadership, who is fixing that problem? So that was what that was what started the idea of leadership trainings in schools. So that, when I started them, people were saying, your NGO, why are you doing leadership training for primary schools and secondary schools? You can't really, there's not much there. I said, I've never taken 1 naira from anybody to do any of these things I've done. So from my salary, from my extra buildings or any work I do outside as a lawyer, I put that money into my project. So my project has always been self-funded intentionally. So these students, like I told them then when I started some 12, 15 years ago, I said some of these students are in their 7 years, some of them are 13 years. Now, had 12 years to someone who was 13 years, they are 25. If they're not too young to run bill, and if we now have good leaders in place, any child anywhere can aspire to be the best that they can be. Some of the feedback she's also seen is when they get into secondary school, some of them, and the school send me messages that, do you know that all our prefects are your students? It ensures that the training are actually working. They are getting into the leadership role now, and they now understand that leadership, because in our own time, we say we were promised that we're future leaders, but then a future came and nobody gave us leadership. I've taught them that nobody hands leadership to you. You go for it. So they know that, okay, I need to lead. I need to be there. I need to put myself out there for leadership. One of the reasons why I'm also contesting is to give them that assurance that a child of anybody in Nigeria can lead once you have the values and you have the interest of your people, the genuine interest of your people at heart. You can lead this country as long as you meet the constitutional requirements. So the feedback had been amazing where they are. And in another 10 years, it looks like a long-term thing. Nigerians will start seeing the shift in the kind of that we now have, because all these students, they are growing in their multiples, they are growing in their thousands, they are growing in their hundreds, and they'll be the leaders that will take over at some point in Nigeria.
We also have to take a break now. All right, this is still your stewardship on Orange 94.5 FM. We've been engaging our guest, Abisayo Busari Akinnadeju, a presidential hopeful in the coming 2027 election. We'll take a break now. When we return, the conversation continues. Please stay with us.
What does it truly mean to serve? Is leadership about power or about responsibility? Welcome to Your Stewardship, a compelling radio program that shines the spotlight on individuals in positions of service and the impact they've made or are still making on the people they serve.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, this is Your Stewardship on Orange 94.5 FM. You can listen to us on Radio Garden. You can also follow us on Facebook, Orange 94.5 FM, Instagram, Orange 94.5 FM, Akure, and on X at Orange 945 FM. Tune in to our broadcast on YouTube on Orange 94.5 FM. Our guest, Abisayo Busari Akinnadeju, a lawyer, humanitarian, and grassroots politician, is still very much with us. Madam, it's good to know that you're still there.
You have had a successful career outside politics, outside law, development and advocacy. What exactly pushed you into the murky waters of Nigerian politics?
Thank you. And I will start by saying that politics is not actually the dirtiest game in town. It's actually the highest form of public service when you entered into it with clean hands and a clean conscience. And so when it comes to politics, and that's one of the things I've come to see or realize, every law that protects someone, every school that was built, every road that connects the community to opportunity, someone chose to show up and go for it. And that's politics at its best. And growing up in a family where I would see politicians coming into my father's sitting room in those days of when Babade Farati was governor of Ondo State. Babade Farati would be there. Someone like Jimo Ibrahim was also aspiring at that time. And then late Daddy Yagagu was also contesting. And on the streets, their supporters would face themselves and hold themselves to stand still. But when you have the opportunity of seeing these three men together, they laugh, shake hands, and that actually was the very thing that inspired me to start teaching. And that's where I started from. Start teaching what we call political education, to tell people you should shun violence. Don't waste your life because of other people. Don't fight for a cause you're not even sure about. And so, from political education over the years, I've come to realize that now that I'm in it as an active participant, especially for the 2027 coming election, I would say I actually did not choose to play the politics, as it were. Politics allowed to choose me, because the moment that we're in at this point actually it requires someone who will not step back, but someone who will step in. It's not always enough to just teach something. Sometimes you need to go out there and say, we need to fix this problem. You can talk for all you can, just like I encourage young Nigerians. We can stay behind the keyboard. We can type on Twitter. We can abuse the government. But if we don't take active steps to things will change. So for me, I had to step in at this point to say, Nigeria can't continue like this. And I must mention the fact that at some point I looked at myself and I said, you're a woman. A lot of killings are going on, a lot of insecurity, a lot of pains. People wonder how they will survive the next month. Get their salary, it can't even take them beyond 2 weeks. And we're talking about minimum wage instead of living wage. And I looked at it and said, you are not going to stay behind Bisayo and fold your arms. A mother does not fold her arms when her house is on fire and the child is inside it. You will step into the arena. If you know what to do, you don't just say do this, then you get into the arena and do that same thing you're talking about. So by practice, by living in the civic space, I've actually seen a lot of things that sometimes you're wondering, with this money, if I can build this structure for this school, if I have the opportunity, and this is money that comes from personal salary and earnings, if you have the governance tool in place, then it means you can do 200. It means you can do 2,000. And that is what it means to actually step out. So I'll probably say that doesn't need another politician. As much as it is what I'm doing at the moment, what we need is a prepared leader who has done the work, who already knows the people, and who is not arriving at public service for the first time, because I'm not starting. I'm continuing what I call public service. So I'd rather put it this way, that I'm stepping into public service for this purpose, for the sake of the young children that are growing up in this country, that are looking up to us for answers. It is time for us to step out and do something.
Okay, so at what point did you move from this thought of Nigeria needs change to I must be part of those in power to effect the change? At what point did you make that decision?
I would refer to this as, I've talked, so I didn't wake up in 2025 to say I want to run for the office of the Nigerian president. Okay. I have mentioned this or talked about this for as far back as 12 years. I'm sure there are some videos and people will be able to dig out where I have said, I'm going to become the first female president of Nigeria. And those conversations started then while I was talking to Nigerians, especially at the grassroots level. They believe that Nigeria is for some particular people. And so I wrote a book in 2017 called The Project One Nigeria. And under that book, I told everybody in that book that Nigeria does not belong to a particular name or a particular tribe. And in the course of teaching that, it dawned on me that I am still teaching. I need to lead. That's what leadership does. I need to show them that the child of, in quote, a principal or the child of a primary school teacher can aspire to become the president of this country. And if I can do it, then you can do it. You can step to lead for your people. So the dream and the idea came about 12 years ago when I started interacting with younger Nigerians who believe that this country belongs to only a few. And that is why I'm here today.
It's a good thing that a woman is stepping out to say, I want to become the first female president of Nigeria, because it's one thing that women have been clamoring for, to recognition in political space. And we know that the 35% affirmative action that has been given, we are not even meeting, I can say even 10%. But the male counterparts always tell us that we are the problem of ourselves. Women not supporting women. What has been your experience so far in this journey, and what are you doing to change the narrative, especially as you're running for female president? How do you get the women to support you?
Let me take a deep breath when it comes to that. The general conversation says that women don't support women, and it has actually used as a weapon against women themselves. And that's because it places the burden of what we are talking about, not having enough women in power, on the shoulder of individuals. First, before we accept the fact that women don't really support women, we need to understand that the political terrain was not really made in such a way that it was so suitable for a woman to run in. So the answer is not to make women feel that, oh, women are not supporting women. The truth is, how easy is it for a woman to actually sometimes step out and say, oh, I'm going for a meeting? And of course, do the meetings have to run into 3 a.m. in the middle of the night? If he has to run into 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, will the husband allow his wife to go for such a meeting? Even if the husband allows her to go for such a meeting, if she has children, babies, how will she be able to cope? I would take this from the gender down to the age. So in Nigeria, for a long time, before the Not Too Young to Run bill was passed into law, it is difficult for you to go into politics at a certain age. And if you look at the Nigerian educational system as well, for most of us that probably might have interest in running for offices, you would have gone through primary school, secondary school, university, finish around the age of 21. By the time you get out of university, you don't have money. You're probably struggling to make money and make ends meet. Why do you have the money to go into politics? So the system, the financial infrastructure around politics, around election, had made it more difficult. And to not talk about the biological factor of it, and made it a bit difficult for women to go into politics. But can this be done? And that's true, it can be done. And of course, I probably will still in the future love to share more about my own experience in arriving here, and where I do not have some of this bias that I've had to overcome over the years. Growing up, for me, background matters a lot. I grew up around a man who believed that a girl child should not be stopped from becoming whatever she wants to become. She should be encouraged and she should be pushed forward. I also now find myself in an industry. The oil and gas industry is male dominated, where we have most men in that room. And I find myself sitting on boards of company where I happen to be the only woman. And it has always been on my mind. How do I encourage other women to stand out, to step out? I'm thinking in the next coming, maybe another session, I'll be able to talk more to Nigerian women on the need for us to believe in our capability, to believe that we can do it. We've had women they've done it in other places. Margaret Thatcher, woman. We've also had women in other African countries that have become prime ministers, that have become presidents of their country.
President.
Yes, we've had them in Singapore, we've had in Namibia. More and more, the terrain is becoming more open to women to participate in. And now come to Nigeria, we've seen us clamoring for the 35% in leadership, which is good.
Action.
We also have us clamoring for the special seat for women.
Yes.
But what my candidacy is standing for, is saying that we're not asking, we're going for it. We're not just going for a percentage. We want to be the lead. We want to be at the helm of affairs and show other women, encourage other women, lead like a mother would lead, especially at a time like this that Nigeria is bleeding. And my talk to Nigerian women will be this, and in canvassing for their support, is for them to know that the point we are in Nigeria is the point that women cannot keep quiet. The children that are committing atrocity in this country, the bandits, the kidnappers, they are from women. The children that are being killed today, Some people are currently in captivity with the bandits. They are children of someone. So women, we can't keep quiet anymore in Nigeria. We can't fold our hands and act like we are helpless. Our children need us. Our husbands need us. We need to speak. And when women's changes happen, we've had it in the past when the Aba women stood up, things will change. Women can no longer afford to stay back and say the system does not support us. Women need to stand up for women. Women need to change the system. And we're not saying we can't. We can. And I'm putting myself out there, regardless of all the challenges that come with being. I'm a mother of 5. And but regardless of that, I'm stepping out to say that Nigerians need women more than ever before. If this country is going to change, if we're going to get out of insecurity, if our economy is going to improve, we need women at the helm of affairs. And the best way to look at it is look at your home front. Sometimes, I love the men and I appreciate the work of the men. But sometimes, if that woman is not in that house to manage the resources, the home will go broke. If the woman is not at the helm of affairs to ensure that there is safety, the man can do the bragado and be in charge. But the woman will check, don't go there, don't step there. We are in that place where women and mothers need to call their children to others, where women need to call their children and their husband and say, let's look at this thing. This is what we've done over the last 67 years of having men at the helm of affairs. And this is what it has to us.
All right. Some men will also make reference to women who have been at the helm of affairs and didn't do well, like the former finance commission minister, the former AT, the speaker, and all that. They will make reference to that. But what say you to this?
So should I respond to that?
Yes.
Is one of the things I've said over the years is leadership is not resident in any particular gender. It's not about I'm a woman or I'm a man, but of course we rule differently. We have different things that we bring to the table. And by the time you look at the percentage of women who had been in power and the percentage of women who had failed us when they got to power, compared with the percentage of men who have been in power and the percentage of men who have failed us in power, then we will not balance the equation. In law, there's that effigy, the effigy of justice, that woman. It has to be balanced. The scale is not balanced. But one thing I'm running on, I'm not running on the wings of those who had gone ahead and who had failed. I'm running on pedigree. I'm running on a track record that has shown that consistency in principle and in creating genuine progress for others is what I'm running on. And I believe that the Nigerian movement, it was built largely on the energy of women who showed up for other women's children. So in the future, I'm trusting that women will support this campaign and help us change. Every women organization that always wanted women in place of position in power in Nigeria should support this aspiration.
Okay. The Electoral Act 2026 has generated a lot of controversies, especially on its provisions on the electronic transmission of results. What's your view on the Electoral Act 2026 as we head towards the 2027 general elections?
The Electoral Act 2022, as amended, that brought us there, actually contains provisions. That's the earlier one, has provisions on the electronic transmission of electoral results. But what the core issue really is that the current Electoral Act, even though it has its own, there were a lot of debates back and forth. People had, no, we don't think this is actually going to be the instrument that would deliver a free and fair election for us. The truth is, electronic transmission is not merely a technical matter. It's actually a sovereignty question, because the vote belongs to the citizen, and the moment that your vote is cast, the citizen's will should be visible, it should be verifiable and protected. So when you are using the electronic transmission, it's actually meant to safeguard that vote casted by that citizen at that polling unit. Will it be made to work? Will there be errors that can come from it, even as we've seen in 2023? what I would expect Nigerians to, the civil society at this point, is to ensure that everything that went wrong in 2023 is not allowed to repeat itself in 2027. So we've had issues where there will be, the beavers is not uploading accurately. All these infrastructure, technical issues has to be fixed as we're going into the election. The law itself is not just merely it's technical on its own, but the most important part of it is the INEC, that is the institution that is saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that a free and fair election is carried out. So when the people have no trust or confidence in the commission itself to be sure that even and that the results are actually it's not just the technical matter. The vote, as I mentioned earlier, belongs to the citizen. The moment that vote is cast, the citizens' will should be visible. It's not just visible, that is, what people have done should be visible, it should be verifiable. System that must be made to honor it. So the law already recognizes how this should be done. It's the system that we now need to worry about. With this system honor it, will there be one or two things that could go wrong? We've had issues where someone say, what happens if the network at that moment or at that place become jammed and people are not able to put the results? The law had made provision to say that the EC8A that has been signed and stamped by the presiding officer and countersigned by the candidates at the polling units is what will be used to determine the outcome of what happened at that place. The most important thing in conclusion, is to say that there is a progress really with that law. What we would do eventually, if I were to be the Nigerian president, is to ensure that when there are judicial ambiguity, especially with regards to the law that says, oh, everything must be done by transmitting through this particular means, and then if this is not done, that will remove the network failure argument permanently. So because you can't actually solve a governance problem by preserving the conditions that make it possible. So everything, the infrastructure needed to ensure that we have smooth transmission is key to our act. He also created one or two ambiguities. But regardless of that, the people, the commission that is saddled with that responsibility has a major role to play than the technical document itself.
All right. Okay, let me ask you this. As a lawyer, some people have also complained that when do we get out of the system where court decides who win in Nigeria? When are we going to have a smooth, free, transparent election that people will accept defeat and say, okay, I don't have to go to court?
Thank you. That it reminds me of the best that a lot of people refer to when you talk about democracy in Nigeria. That was when Jonathan accepted defeat, and he considered without necessarily saying, no, I need to go to court to go and fight. It is true. No, court should not decide who wins elections in Nigeria. The ballot box should. The court's role is to protect the integrity of the process, not necessarily to substitute the judgment of the will of the electorate. So it means that where the fault lies is not the court that actually, that's not the role that the court is meant to play in the real sense of it. If an election was free and fair, the ballot box should do the job. The results being uploaded in the minds of everybody there. If there are no let me use the word we used to use when we were young, anky panky.
Hanky
Such
panky
things
game.
were not done, then people would have no reason to go and say, no, something went wrong here and another thing went wrong there. So where we are really, the systemic fees is that if you have healthy democracy, the court definitely is the last line of defense. It's not the first. So when courts are deciding in elections in Nigeria, a lot of lawyers look forward to it. Oh, electoral tribunal and all that. It becomes something everybody wants to have. So even when there are no cases, you could have people saying, no, we need to go and challenge this. The truth is, courts are not supposed to be the first line when it comes to the electoral or in a healthy democracy. They're not supposed to be the one at it, but it's a symptom of a broken process. It's actually a symptom of a broken process. And I'm committed to fix some of these processes so that completely that the court just become the safeguard that it was designed to be, but not the arena where it's not the one that determines finally who gets into power. The people of Nigeria should decide who leads Nigeria, full stop, by the polls, by the votes casted at the polling booths, and not on technicality that would happen in the courtroom.
Right, so we're sorry for that, the network issue. Okay, let's move on. You are aligned with the Democratic Leadership Alliance. Is this a movement or is it a vehicle to actually win elections? Because some will ask, how many words, how many grassroots churches do you have? How many loyal foot soldiers do you currently control? Do you genuinely believe your current platform can win, or it will come to a point where you need to consider realigning with a major political party?
Thank you. Thank you. And just as I answer every question in a very honest way and the way I see it, first, DLA was recently registered. In fact, it is less than 3 months old, February of this year, and this is April, when that was when the party was registered. The truth is, DLA at the moment, between the time that it was registered and now, has remarkably moved across the country. And I would answer the very first question by saying DLA is not just a mere political party. Like we've always had other parties that people set up as a vehicle that they can trade or buy so that they can contest on that platform. So Democratic Leadership Alliance as a party that I eventually identified with, initially have asked people, well, we need to have parties that have clear ideology. So DLA was structured in such a way that even as an opposition or in power, you are actually carrying out what a political party should do in a country. And I will refer to a statement, permit me, I studied Singapore a lot, even though it's a smaller country. I studied Singapore, and Lee Kuan Yew once said, it is difficult to find a colony of the British rule that would have a successful democracy. One, because most of the system left in this country do not have an educated electorate. And so this is where I'm going to. So in a country like Nigeria, we say we practice democracy, but do we really practice democracy? When you practice democracy and the electorates are not really informed as to what it means to have a democracy, then you can't really advance with that system. Justice comes under democracy. Rule of free and fair comes under democracy. But do we have this in Nigerian politics today? Institutional integrity. Those are things that DLA stand for. So DLA is a leadership platform. And I can confirm to you that as of today, for everybody that is currently vying for one office or the other under the Democratic Leadership Alliance, they are going through compulsory leadership training. So it's a platform, it's a movement of educating Nigerians, of returning us to the place where we have clear ideology. What does that party stand for? If the party stands for free education, like we used to have in the days of UPN, those days in the early years of Nigeria, if they stand for free basic medical facilities for Nigeria, if they stand for power, that we must have 24-hour power in Nigeria, that will be the focus. That's what happened abroad. So when you're in the United States and you belong to the Republican, you know the values of the Republican. And that's what they pursue. If you're a democratic, you know the values of democracy. That is what you pursue. But in Nigeria, it is a uniform. You wear this one today, you move to the next one and wear the next uniform as a vehicle. That's how politicians have used the political parties. But political parties do not exist to be that. Political parties exist for the people. So you will see in a place like United Kingdom, there is a prime minister that belongs to this. The opposition sits in the house and they are challenging some of those principles with facts and figures. So this is the reason why we can't do this. This is how it affects the farmers. This is how it affects the women in the market, because they are representing some values. And that is what DLA stands for. So first of all, DLA is a movement. It's a political party that is meant to redefine leadership in Nigeria and rewrite the history of this country. So it's going to move on that one. In terms of structure, I would make a ready reference to Labour Party in 2023. We saw how Labour Party came with seemingly no structure, as it were, but because a lot of people believe in the need for a change, it came up at the end of the day with a third position, even for the office of the president of the country. That was then. But even now, we have a DLA that is coming with a clear ideology, and we have millions of Nigerian youth that do not even belong to a political party as of today. The reason why they've not joined any political party is when you look at the parties that are in existence, what do they represent? Why should you join a political party? What is the value in it for you? What are you learning? You join DLA today, you know you will go through leadership training, you know you will go through financial literacy training, you know that a party is not just existing for the purpose of holding election every 4 years, but a party that is committed either in power or before you get to power to change things for Nigerians. So that is actually what this is for me. So DLA surely can win, and if we put in the work, the candidate clarity that is there, coalition building, definitely no new party wins alone. And with all that is happening right now in Nigeria, we've seen a whole lot of influx, even though we are ensuring that anybody who wants to join the party understand what the party stands for. Because you don't just want you to say because your party has not given you your ticket, you want to join DLE. So definitely, we have currently strategic alliances with civil society organizations, women network, youth bodies. But of course, in the coming election, we believe that we have a particular advantage, which is the number of Nigerians over the years who have not seen something like this before, who have not seen a party like this before, and who are willing to join. So in our very first 4 weeks of getting registered by INEC, we've already recorded millions of people who registered as members. And that is a win. So between now, January 2027, when we have advocated more and we're more in the public, right now we're putting structures across the world, across the different states. We have presence in all the states of Nigeria at the moment. We have ready structured into Congress and ward election in 33 states at the moment, more in the core north, and we're now trying to build in the southwest, which happens to actually be where I am from. So if we need to double up more in terms of our work, is the southwest that we also still need to close the gap where possible. And probably, and in all, with all the quality of work everybody is ready to put into it, we believe that between now and February 2027 or January 16, 2027, we will be more than ready to go into that, even with the ruling party.
Thank you very much for your time, Abisayo Modupe-Busari Akinnadeju. Yes, stewardship is a continuous journey. It doesn't end when the term is over. But the question remains, what will be your scorecard? What will your scorecard look like? Thank you for being a part of our journey today. I am Remilekun Allen. Special thanks to the producer, engineer Femi Ayekomilogbo, assisted by Obi Chukwemeka Ote, not leaving out all the members of the team who made this program a success. Until we meet again some other time, I am Remy Allen. Bye-bye.